Yes, hi listeners. Welcome to Heaven Can Wait podcast. I'm your host, Morten Wolf. This podcast, my website, all focuses on the goal of making you feel healthier, happier, and stronger. And I'm going to be inviting interesting guests on that's going to share their transformations and experiences in their life. So hopefully you can benefit too. So let's get started. I have a really interesting man in front of me, a great friend. He's 59 years old. He's literally lived all over the world. He speaks about five fluent languages and a bit of Chinese on top of that. So that sounds really impressive. I can only manage maybe two and a half, but no, that's great. You've worked all over the world also. I mean, you worked in banking with Goldman Sachs and Paribas Capital Marketing in London and New York. You have been working in Hong Kong, China, and Bangkok, dealing with consumer products like chemicals, machinery, and so forth. And then as a second part of your life, you set up a business doing headhunting in the banking industry. You had a company with 80 staff that had offices in Frankfurt, Paris, Zurich, Istanbul, Dubai, Singapore, and even Hong Kong. So that sounds extremely impressive. And of course, what also changed your life basically was, I mean, we all did, also my life, was the financial crash in 2007 and 8. And we kind of all had to reinvent ourselves. And after that, I understand you moved to Spain and you started dealing with prime real estate in the southern part of Spain. I understand your family lives there, your parents. And lately here, you started a whole new adventure, something to do with focusing on end-of-life tire. Can you explain a little bit about that? What is that actually
Sure.
involving?
Well, thanks, Morten, for inviting me to your podcast. It's a real honor and privilege, and also I was just thinking about it. We've known each other for 40 years.
Yes, we have. Yeah, it's a long
Since we
time.
were young and naughty, and here we are. Yes, I have redesigned, re-engineered myself many times in my life, and I don't think it's ever too late to start something new. And I have recently become involved with some partners of mine, and we are launching a business which, as you say, has to do with end-of-life tires. End-of-life tires is a huge problem in the world. Every year 1.5 billion tires hit the end of the road. These used to just be buried and burned, but that's now, in the developed world at least, illegal. And so one has to recycle these. Really, the common forms of recycling tires today is by using them, for example, you shred them right into little pieces,
Yeah.
and then you use that so-called rubber crumb for road paving surfaces, for playground surfaces, astroturf in sports fields, and a host of other applications. The problem is that's not really a perfect solution. That's the best that we have found so far, at least on a scalable basis. But at the end, really what happens is the rubber crumb, which is on playground surfaces, has a shelf life of 5 to 10 years. That's it. And at the end of the day, you're still left with undecomposed rubber.
Yeah, I can
The only
imagine.
real circular way to deal with rubber and tires, these are tough nuts to crack. It's something called pyrolysis. And pyrolysis is basically a technology where you can extract 98% of all of the raw materials that went into the production of a tire and recover these.
Okay, yeah.
So in other words, you recover a tire is principally made of oil, rubber. There's some steel in there as well, in the wire cord, and textile. These are the main components.
Sounds extremely interesting. Yeah.
You could look the rubber, the carbon black. You can recover the carbon black. Carbon black is traditionally made by burning fossil fuels, so it's dirty. But here we can actually recover the carbon black. And carbon black, and anybody wants, it's everywhere. It's on your dashboard, your steering wheel. It's on the plastic coating of your mobile phone and laptops. It's in inks. It's used in the agricultural industry.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. But the main use application for carbon black is in the tire industry.
Yeah.
And we can recover that carbon black.
Okay.
And there's oil in the tire, and we can recover that oil as well. And the technology, I should say, can, because we don't yet have a pyrolysis business. This is our vision.
Yeah.
The trouble with other companies that have entered this field, and there are, I'd say, probably a dozen worldwide leading companies in this field. There's hosts of others, in less developed countries,
Yeah.
which are perhaps not as efficient and as clean. But the technology that we will be using is one that can recover these materials, but it also can produce electricity, because the oil which we recover, which doesn't get distilled, produces something called syngas, synthetic gas, and this syngas can be converted into electricity.
Okay.
The pyrolysis technology that we will be using actually produces more heat and more electricity than would be required to power and heat our plant, which means that we actually have a negative carbon footprint.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Not only circular, it has a negative carbon footprint. But what we're going to do first, because other companies, and I'm going to come to the end of this because we're not going to talk about tires the whole time, but just to round this off, so that your viewers can understand why this is interesting. People who are involved in this already have not managed to scale it up, because the feedstock, in other words, end-of-life tires, feedstock is the bottleneck of the recycling industry. And most people who are involved in pyrolysis have not managed to control their logistics and to control their feedstock, because all they focus on is the output. What we're going to do first, before going into pyrolysis, we're going to collect and shred tires and build up a strategic stock and use this as a springboard to then later realize our vision of pyrolysis, and then to be able to do it on a scalable basis. Because until you're big enough, you won't be on the radar screen of the time.
I'll definitely keep an eye on this project. It sounds extremely interesting. That's more or less it. Yeah, but
it is. It's very exciting, and
because tires are meant to do have a huge carbon footprint. Producing tires and the waste
tires,
of it.
Since tires were first invented and used in cars, they have not yet decomposed.
No.
So what have we done in the past? We've buried them or we've burnt them.
Yeah, which is not great.
That's not great. So there's a 4 billion stockpile right now, and every year we produce 1.5 billion more every year.
Yeah, one shouldn't think so.
This is a huge problem.
Yeah.
Huge problem.
And it keeps going on.
230 kilos of natural resources are consumed to produce a single tire.
That's amazing.
So it's a big problem.
No, that has a great future in front of it. I can see. Let's go a little bit back to you. I mean, you basically, as I said, you lived all over the place, and so has your schooling really. I mean, you went to a boarding school in England when you were 7, I think, wasn't it?
No, I didn't. No, I actually. The traditional, way back when I went to boarding school, traditionally, boarding schools in England really became, I suppose, popular during the times of the colonies, right? So when people were stationed in far-flung places, they had to ensure that their children had a good education, and they parked them off. At boarding school, traditionally, they'd start at 6 and go until 18. I was much older. When I first went to boarding school, I was 11.
Yeah.
And I only went until I was 17, because then I finished my education in Denmark.
Yeah, and then you came to Denmark.
Which was when we met.
That's when we met, yeah, because you were doing...
which is when we met, exactly.
Yeah, you were studying business there. Is that right?
Yes, I was at the Sønderborg Handel School.
Yes,
that's right.
Yeah, I was in the gymnasium or doing A-levels at that time, and then, of course, you went back to London again.
We were just young puppies then, more.
We were,
Sorry.
In innocence, finding our footage in life.
Really wet behind the ears. Yes.
Definitely. And then you went back to, you did a little bit of Germany also in Hamburg, I can remember.
Yeah, no, after finishing my secondary schooling in Denmark, I went to, and I couldn't speak Danish when I went to Denmark. So this has really been part of, when I arrived in Denmark, I spoke English, French, and Spanish, but I didn't speak Danish, and I'm actually Danish. And so I first had to go to a language school in Denmark to learn Danish, and then after 6 months, I then did completed my secondary schooling in Denmark, and then I didn't speak German. I went to Hamburg to do an import-export. The Germans have this sort of very classical apprenticeship system. Yeah. So then I lived in Hamburg for 2.5 years. 3 days a week I was at the office, and 2 days a week we had to go to a kind of business school where you learned, the whole process of import, export, and accounting and economics and all that stuff. And I hardly spoke any German at all. So it was really sink or swim.
That's very unusual.
But yeah, but
yeah. You're Danish.
Well, people said I was crazy, and people said you're never going to make it. People said you're never going to make it. But you know what? I think if you want to do something, you can.
Yes, of course. Yeah. I mean, with living all these different places and so on, I mean, where did you actually feel at home? I mean, where were you belonging? I mean, where did you, or did you not really?
Never. Look, no, I was born in Denmark. My parents left when I was 6 months old. They then moved all around South America until I was about 5 or 6 in Argentina, in Peru, in Brazil. They then went to Beirut in 1967 during the 6-Day War. We didn't escape and panic like everybody else. We stayed, but eventually we left. Lived in France, in Switzerland, in Spain, in England, Denmark, Germany, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Bangkok, Singapore. So I've lived, it's one thing going on a holiday, it's another thing to actually live in those places. So I've lived in all of those places, and in many of them more than once. Singapore, I've lived twice.
Yeah, so you don't really feel that you belong to one place.
No. In fact, my father wrote a book about his memoirs, and the title of it is "Only Trees Need Roots."
Okay.
So my home is where my family is. For me, home is not, and it's unlike many people, I suppose. But for me, home it's not bricks and mortar. For me, home is.
It's where your family is.
It's
and friends.
And so I don't think I've ever really lived anywhere where I can say, oh, I feel at home. I feel like, oh, I'm German. I feel German, or I'm always a tourist.
Yeah,
like wherever
that's very unusual. I mean, because most people do have a belonging. They've born one place. They go to school. They even get buried in the same place. I mean, so it's kind of
but there's an interesting concept, or there's an interesting phrase which talks about people like this, and it's called third culture kids, I believe. And it's basically children whose mother is from one nationality, whose father is from another nationality, and then they live in a third place, which nobody has, none of them have to do with, and grow up that way. Very often it's, diplomatic children and so on. They're typically third culture kids. You might have an American father, a German mother, and you live in Japan, for example.
Yeah. But I mean, the title of your father's book, I mean, says it all. Yeah, only trees need roots. So I mean, it could be said.
He was born in Hong Kong, and has, I believe, to this date, has a British passport, a British colonial passport.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah. So that's the same with.
But anyway, so it goes back. It's my on my father's side, for 4 or 5 generations, they've been living in Asia. So I guess it's just part of my DNA.
Yeah, of course it is.
For me, home is people. For me, home is where my wife and children are.
Yeah.
And whether we're here, we're in southern Spain, or whether we're somewhere else, it doesn't matter. Where our suitcases take us, that's home.
Is that the same for you? You had 2 other brothers, yeah? You have 2 other brothers, or
one died. Yes, I was the eldest of 3, and the middle one, Nick, whom you knew actually many years ago.
Yeah.
Nick died of lymphoma when he was 33. Today, very much a curable disease, but it was detected too late at very advanced stages, and tragically, at 33, he died.
Yeah, I know. I shared a flat with him for a period of time in Copenhagen, so I know him very well. So that was very sad to hear.
He was a bright spark. He burnt the candle for both ends, and he was full of life.
I always had a feeling that he didn't really feel where he belonged in life. I mean, it was like he didn't know which direction to go. I don't know if that's, I mean, you looked always very determined of what you were doing. It's like you had a goal in front of you and you basically went for it. I mean, when I lived with Nick and so on, he didn't really have that goal or that vision of where he should, so I don't know.
No, I guess, he was also very young, maybe just, Nick was sort of really very much a person who lived in the moment, and his mantra was, I want to have fun in life. And I have a younger brother who lives in England today, Mark.
Yeah, I know him too.
In his early 50s.
Yeah, we're getting older, all of us. So I mean, when
My
Nick,
wife is my wife is American. My 3 kids were born in Germany. We then moved to Singapore, and then we moved to Denmark, and then we moved back to Singapore, and now we're in Spain. So I tried to provide them with a little bit more anchorage than I had, but I guess that's impossible enough.
yeah, I know Karen, American. She's a beautiful wife you have there, and 3 gorgeous kids. So, I mean, when Nick passed away, did that kind of question your own mortality a bit? Did you feel that, or not really?
You know what? I think it really. I think it's 26 years ago now. No, what am I talking about? No, he was 33, so I would have been 35. So it's I'm 59. So what is that? 24 years. But it gave me I was at the time working in Bangkok in a business that actually belongs to my family since several generations. And for me, that was the be and end all. I had until then envisaged that I was going to move up the ranks of the family business, and as my forefathers done.
Yeah.
And my younger brother Mark. So I was living in Bangkok. My younger brother Mark was living in Munich. And then when Nick died, we felt that more important than our careers was to reconnect with one another.
Yeah.
So I resigned. I left Bangkok. I left the family business, which had always been my dream, and I moved to London and thought about what am I going to do. And Mark was still in Munich, and I said, let's not both be unemployed in London. You continue with your job in Munich, and when I found a home and when I found a job, then you come over. Yeah. And what he did. So it was a healing time for us, where we we're almost 7 years apart, and this really gave us having lived in different continents and so on, it really gave us an opportunity to connect and be close as brothers. And we did that for 1.5 years. And then I met a girlfriend, Karen, whom I married, and then Mark met a girlfriend, Gita, whom he married later. But that 1.5 years was really that time where we kind of bonded together and really felt this was more important for us than our careers.
So there was a bit of transformation going on already then, yeah.
I guess so, yes, through hardship. But it kind of gave me a new perspective. That there are things that are more important in life than just.
But it's odd. I mean, it's the same for me. When we had the financial crisis, I mean, we also uprooted from London. I've been living there for 25 years at that time, and it is like there has to be some kind of moment in our life that kind of makes us sit down and kind of realize, hey, there is something else more important in life, like family, like your brother. You wanted to reconnect and so on. I wanted to go back to my roots, and my father is getting older and so on. My brother is here, so it's a little bit the same. I mean, and now, of course, we've had COVID and so on, and huge changes are happening again. I mean, we start transforming our life and so on, and I can understand you. I mean, you got more interested in health and what's more important in life, a bit of spiritualism and personal growth and so on. And I can understand you have a couple of books you have that made an influence on you and had an impact on you. And one was with Dr. Wayne Dyer. And he was kind of a father of motivation. I mean, what did he actually do for you when you read that book?
I guess I was always looking for something. It actually started already trying to find out about, when I was 22, I was exposed to something called the S training, which was very kind of radical at the time and frowned upon by people. It really had to do with personal transformation, and it was about, I suppose, breaking away from your comfort zone. This type of thing, and really since then I've always been interested in personal growth and the conditioning that we're all subject to by society and our belief system and our limiting beliefs, and this has always interested me a lot, and yes, along that path, I came upon it was actually not a book, although I think there is a book, but it was actually an audio CD series called The Power of Intention. Power of Intention by Dr. Wayne Dyer, which I found very interesting. And then I also was interested in Eckhart Tolle. He's of course very famous and I guess most famous for that He wrote The Power of Now.
Yeah.
And you know, these type of things always interested me, but it never, you know, these books, it interested me on an intellectual level, but never really had tangible results for me, at least.
No, okay, yeah.
And I do believe in the law of attraction, and you know, in the universe, and you know, the old Henry Ford saying, you know, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. You know, and I'm no one, you know, this kind of thinking is nothing new, right? I was, you know,
but did you find
Buddhism or, but I never, none of these people really, I could really feel that made a tangible difference in my life.
No, but did you? I mean, you
told me about.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you see, like with Eckhart Tolle, I mean, I think it was 27 years he was kind of depressed and walked around and couldn't find his place in life, you know, and then he made that, he started suddenly waking up one day and his life changed more or less. I mean, it sounded a little bit like a miracle.
Yes.
And I mean, did you ever find yourself in a situation where you weren't happy where you were in life, or
Of course.
We all have these periods, didn't we?
And I think that's what, and I think it's in those moments that you search for something, right? And so I was searching, you know, for new information, and as I said, a lot of this information was interesting, and it was like, oh, aha, that's a new discovery, you know. But none of them really had a tangible impact on me, I found, until you told me about Wim Hof.
Wim Hof.
No, really.
Yes. He had
you were the one who told me about Wim Hof, I think 5 years ago, and I said, you must be crazy. There's no way that I'm going to, you know, I hate the cold. There's no way that I'm going to jump in the cold.
No, but that's what most of the people I introduced it to, you know, they said, you must be crazy. There's no way I'm going to go in the cold.
Yeah, because most people, not many people like the cold. And so when you mention the word cold, they think that that's the only thing that it's about. Of course, people who practice the Wim Hof method know that that's just one of elements, but it's the one that people don't like. So they only focus on that and forget about the rest.
Yeah.
And that's fear, right? Because we don't like to get out of our comfort zone. No. Getting out of your comfort zones makes you uncomfortable. That's what we call the comfort zone.
Yeah.
The minute you start to feel resistance, an inner resistance, you know, aha, this is getting uncomfortable. But if you say to yourself, this is actually good, because this is like an alarm signal telling me that, oh, there's an opportunity on the other side of this barrier, you know, like they say that, you know, outside of your comfort zone, that's where the magic happens. So, but if you're never willing to put yourself through stress, then you're never going to find the magic. And I think that's what all these books, you know, you can be a yogi and sit in a cave for 20 years to seek enlightenment and all these things, right? Wim Hof is like here and now, and it's tangible and it's practical. And that's and when you told me about that initially, I thought you're mad, and then I decided to do it, and that was on the 5th of September 2017. I started, funnily enough, together with my daughter, who was then 17. We started the 10-week course of the Wim Hof Method, and I said to you not long after, thanks for changing my life. And people who I have told, you know, about the Wim Hof Method, they've come to me and said, John, thanks for changing my life. Yeah. And this is not some guru thing, and that's what I like about Wim Hof, because it's not someone that you follow. You know, a lot of these spiritual leaders and so on, they have a following. You know, yes, Wim Hof is very famous now, and a lot of people, you know, are very grateful to him for opening our eyes about what the possibilities are within us. But he doesn't have, I don't think, he's not like a following in so much that he has a guru. It's just doing the method every single day, and then you see what the benefits are. Yeah. But I guess we're talking about something that maybe a lot of your readers don't know what on earth we're talking about. Maybe we should just tell them.
We could. Yes, I mean, Wim Hof. Literally, I got introduced to him to my son. I mean, he heard a podcast on Joe Rogan where he was interviewing Wim Hof, and I kind of listened to it. And I've always been a little bit of a science geek, so I kind of found, hey, this is really interesting, and I kind of signed up to his course the next day and started already my breathing exercises when I was in London for a weekend, and just literally continued it. And I mean, I didn't feel much of a change the first few weeks basically in the course, And getting introduced to cold, I mean, that was really an eye-opener. And I can remember one particular thing is that somewhere throughout the course, I mean, you can explain what it's about just in a minute, but I can remember one part of the course was that we get this video every week and we have to follow it. And they said, during this week here, you have to take a 10-minute ice cold shower. I'm stuck in Denmark,
I remember that,
and ice cold showers are ice cold here in the wintertime.
Or ice cold.
And I kind of
Absolutely.
said, you know, oh, that's fine. I mean, I have a whole week to do this 10-minute cold shower. But I literally couldn't get it out of my system. I mean, it was just a Saturday, I got the video and I had butterflies in my stomach like I was sitting some major exam. And I thought, I can't live a week like this with butterflies in my stomach and having to, it takes up all my focus. So I said, no, I have to do it today. I have to get it out of the way. And literally getting into the shower, standing there with my telephone standing on the toilet roll outside so I can keep an eye on the time. I mean, I thought I stood in there for hours, and I kind of looked out, and I've only been there for a minute and a half. And when I did the 10 minutes, it was like I was on top of Mount Everest. I felt like this is the amazing thing. There is nothing that can push me over now. I can achieve anything I put into that I focus on now, literally. It really was such a transformation. And maybe you can tell our my listeners what is Wim Hof actually? What?
Well, Wim Hof, simply put, is a technique, a practice where there are three main pillars to the Wim Hof method. One of them is very intensive breathing. And I'm not going to get into the science of it, but the intensive breathing actually changes the biology in your body. You become more alkaline and has many other aspects, which I'm not going to get into, but just the three pillars. One of them is very intensive breathing. The other is strength exercises and yoga type of exercises and meditation. And then the third main pillar is exposure to cold. That's the one that people go. People go, yes, sure, I'll breathe. Yes, I go to the gym, you know, but they don't like the idea of the cold, right? No. Regardless whether they are, even if they're fit elite athletes, right? Now, actually, of course, a lot of elite athletes have understood the benefits of cold therapy. But it's kind of really only extreme people who are used to confronting their comfort zone, because an elite athlete will, of course, constantly be pushing themselves, right? So, but you said it took a while before you felt a real impact. I mean, I felt it in the second week. Okay, in the week 2, I probably had my first aha moment, because I was a heavy smoker, and actually a heavy smoker with someone who's historically has had bad lungs. So when I was a child, I always had every year pretty bad bronchitis. To the extent that I would have fever and be in bed and so on every year, and I had asthma, not to the extent that I had chronic asthma, but I would have an inhaler, right? And very often it would be sports related asthma. I'd start wheezing, but I've never had good lungs. And in spite of all that, look, when I lived in Shanghai, I smoked 2 cigars a day, and then I was a heavy cigarette smoker. And I was standing there on the balcony at the end of 2 weeks of the 10-week Wim Hof course. And I was standing there smoking a cigarette on my balcony. And then I'd been feeling so fantastic. And then I took a puff on my cigarette. And I'll never forget the thought that went through my head. I said to myself, why would I sabotage a good thing? And I then really realized how, stopping smoking is a very bad addiction. And I've tried earlier in my life to quit smoking, and I've read I think it was Alan Carr who wrote books. And I've quit several times in my life, but I always came back to it. And I was eating so great from the Wim Hof method, and I thought, why would I sabotage a good thing? You can't tell people to stop smoking because it's expensive. Can't tell people to stop smoking because it's bad for their health. They all know that. People have looked at the most horrific, X-rays of lungs filled with tar and what have you, and they still keep smoking. You have people who have cancer and they still keep smoking.
It's right? Even on the back of cigarette packs.
I was just feeling so great. I just said to myself that the fundamental question for me was, why would I sabotage a good?
Yeah.
That's like insanity.
Yeah.
That's insanity.
Yeah.
And I put out my cigarette, and that was it.
Cool.
Now, I don't like to be a slave to anything.
No.
So for example, I don't, just as I don't want to be a slave to smoking, I don't want to be a slave to not smoking.
Yeah.
So once in a while, my wife lights her cigarette.
Yeah.
I'll say, let me light it for you.
Yeah.
And then I'll take a puff or two.
Yeah.
And then it'll be a nice reminder of how disgusting it is.
Yeah.
And I'll give it back to her.
Yeah.
But I do that simply to remind myself that I did the right thing, but also not to be a slave, because it's not, oh, I mustn't smoke because I shouldn't, but I'm not going to smoke because I don't want to.
Yeah, no, I like
and
that
there's
philosophy.
there's a little subtle difference there, right?
Yeah, I like
It's
that.
it's the same with I turned vegan this year, right?
Yeah, I want to hear about
January
that too.
Year.
Definitely, that's
So
a major
so
change
almost,
too.
it's almost. But just before veganism, let me just round up Wim Hof. So I felt it's great, this sort of a thing in the second week. I completed the 10-week course. I'm now on a little over 3 years doing the Wim Hof method. And I always had bronchitis, and as a child, and latent asthma. And as an adult, every year, I would have several occasions, could be twice, it could be 5 times if it was a really bad winter, where I would end up in bed with some kind of flu and fever, and I'd be in bed. My wife would always call it banana flu, right? But when it hit me, it was always much worse than anybody else. And I would have fever, and I'd be bedridden. I couldn't function, right? And when we lived in Singapore, there was something going around which I'd never heard of before called mycoplasma, which some people call walking pneumonia.
Yeah.
If anybody was going to get mycoplasma, that was me, right? And I got it, and I was like, someone said to me, John, you're like a harbor for disease. You're just like attracting all these different things all the time.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah.
And then I realized that conventional medicine wasn't really helping. And then I had always poo-pooed homeotherapy. I always thought it was hocus pocus. And this Indian friend of mine said, you must meet this Indian lady called Charu. And Charu is like a genius in homeopathy. And I said, you know what? I've tried everything and it's not working. And the trouble with conventional Western medicine is it doesn't deal with the cause. It deals with the symptoms.
Yeah.
It just deals with the symptom. And then I learned that homeopathy actually deals with the cause. It goes on a much deeper level. And after following her advice and following her courses, I stopped getting sick so much. I still did once in a while, but not as much as before. Wim Hof, I started Wim Hof a little over 3 years ago. I haven't spent a day in bed since then.
No,
I haven't been
same
sick.
Here. Same here.
I haven't been, my immune system has gone through the roof. I feel on top of the world. I have more strength than I had in my 20s. When one of the things in Wim Hof is they say do push-ups, right? Or like the English say press-ups, right? So I've always been when I was younger, I was, good at lots of different sports. I would sometimes go to the gym, I would play squash, I played tennis, I played rugby at school, and I swam for my school team. I used to play water polo. When I was younger, I was a good all-round in sports.
Yeah.
And I remember, that I could maybe do in my 30s or whatever. I could maybe do. I can't remember even 40, 50, right? And in my 40s.
Yeah.
And then after doing the Wim Hof method, one of the things he says is, okay, on the final set of the breathing exercises, on your last exhalation, on empty lungs, see how many push-ups, right? So when I was 55, my record was 105 push-ups on empty lungs. The trouble is, Morten, the trouble is to do 105 push-ups on empty lungs without breathing, there's only one way to do them, and that's really quickly, right?
Yeah.
And so you compromise, because you're going to run out of air, right? So I then decided, and I was doing 100 regularly. My record was 105, but I did 100, and then I decided to change that, because it's not just about how many can I do.
It's technique.
It's kind of like it's like an ego trip, right?
Yeah.
So now I do it differently. Now I do 50 to 60 on empty lungs.
Yeah.
And then I will just stretch my arms a little bit like this, and then I'll do another 50 to 60 right after that, but with breathing.
Yeah.
And there's one thing about the Wim Hof method, because it changes your biochemistry and you don't build up lactic acid, right? I remember after having done the horse stance, where you stand, it's kind of like in martial arts they do.
Yeah.
Not for 1 minute, not for 2 minutes, but for 10 minutes, standing in a horse stance. And the next day I had no pain in my legs. And when I would do all these push-ups, I couldn't feel a thing, nothing, because there was no lactic acid buildup.
No.
Because of the breathing exercise. And that to me was really was really something. And also with Wim Hof, before veganism, is the power of the mind. So I said I'd never spent a day in bed. That doesn't mean that I've never felt off in the last 3.5 years. And there was a situation, and this is the power of the mind and what I love about Wim Hof, right? Because we can do so much more than we can. You know, people always used to say, oh, and I don't know that's what the exact percentage is, but oh, we only use 98% of our brain. You know,
10%, yeah.
And we kind of take it for granted. Oh, there's so much potential that we don't use. But then when you talk to people about that bit that you can tap into, which we don't have, they go, oh, hocus pocus, they don't believe it. Right?
No.
Because we can't comprehend it, right? So immediately we'd say no.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was working a couple of years ago, I'd been doing Wim Hof for about a year. It was wintertime. And the entire office got sick. Everybody got sick, right? And I was last man standing. And I was fine.
And that was unusual for you. Yeah, that was unusual for you. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, one morning, I felt that I was getting a sore throat. You know how when you start to get sick, you can feel something? Mm-hmm. There's just something inside you. Before you even are symptomatic, you feel, oh, something's not right? And then I started to feel that my throat was getting sore. And I got so angry with myself. I said, how dare you even think that you're going to get sick? I went into the bathroom. I closed the door. And I said to myself, don't you even think about it. There is no way in hell that you're going to get sick. And I didn't. No, and cool. That for me was like, my God, this is really strange. This is really strange. You actually have the power. You know, when you have children, there's always one of them who comes home from school.
Yes, of course. Yeah, right? That's normal. Yeah.
When you work in an office, there's constantly, in winter especially, you're constantly surrounded by people who are sick. And we're not even talking about COVID now. We're just talking about the general flu season, right? And either I don't get anything at all, or if I feel that I'm getting a little something, I don't end up in bed. I might have a slightly blocked nose for a day, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
It's the same for me.
When that would happen, I would end up in bed.
Yeah.
All my life.
Yeah. And when I had minor symptoms, I mean, I just start doing the breathing exercises and so on and going through the process. Exactly. And it kind of eliminates the problem.
And this is why I was saying before that all these things that I was searching for before, and these are very wonderful people, you know, Wayne Dyer, Eckhart Tolle, and the Dalai Lama, and, you know, these are all wonderful people. But I found that I was searching for answers. Yeah. And I would get like insights, but never anything that was tangible and transformational. But Wim Hof has done that. You know why? Because I don't search anymore. I don't have to search because it's all in here. Don't have to look for anything. Oh. It's there already. Yeah. And that for me is.
No, you're right.
So anyone who's interested in Wim Hof, I knew we were going to talk about Wim Hof. So this one, Becoming the Iceman, right? Good. Is about a young guy. His name is Justin Rosales, who decided to do the Wim Hof method, had no money, then met with Wim, spent time with him and so on. This one I love because Scott Carney, What Doesn't Kill Us. Scott Carney is a journalist who was very skeptical about Wim Hof and went to go to one of his trainings, kind of like to see what this was all about, became a convert. Convert is maybe the wrong word because it sounds like you like some kind of
religion.
But was so impacted by it. He wrote this book, What Doesn't Kill Us. It's mind-boggling. And I just bought, I'm halfway through it, his most recent book, Wim Hof Method.
Yeah, that's a new book. It's just come out. Yes. No, I haven't read that.
It's just come out. I'm halfway through it. I'm halfway through it, and I'm really enjoying it. And it's just all about testing our boundaries. Look, Morten, you know what it's like. Even if you've done the Wim Hof method for years, every morning I confront my comfort zone because I don't like getting in the cold shower.
Listen, we need to go up to the...
I still don't like it, but every morning I go into the cold shower. Yeah. Or if it's in winter, I'll go into the cold river or the sea or whatever, on weekends mainly because that's when there's more time, or take an ice bath. Yeah. And it's like you said before, the butterflies in your stomach, but when you train and you do it, it's that you no longer have this uncontrollable gasping for breathing when you're in the cold. You're completely under control and quite comfortable actually. But that initial mental thing, like, oh my God, it's going to be cold. Like, it's going to be cold. So what? And you go in, take your fear with you. Don't let it stop you. Take it. Come on, fear. Let's go. you know, and that's
I think we should both agree on let's find an iceberg one day and swim around it. Yeah.
I want to actually go on one of these Wim Hof expeditions. I really do. That he does in Poland and Iceland. I want to swim. You know, among the icebergs.
So let's try to make it. Let's promise each other we will do that together. Let's find a course where he is doing something like this, and then we will go together. Yes. I would really enjoy it.
Well, he does them all the time. But it's. I'm going to do it. I'm definitely.
Me too.
And I will let you know, and we'll go together.
Yeah. Definitely.
Let's get this coronavirus thing out of the way, and then
so we can feel a bit free again. That's right. Yeah. Right. But then you turned vegan here recently, also.
Yes, I turned vegan in January. Yeah, you know, I turned vegan in January, and really look, I've always had high cholesterol and slightly high blood pressure, not to the point that I've had to take medication, but where doctors have said, you know, if your cholesterol goes any higher, you're going to have to start taking statins, right? But I didn't. I know that the Wim Hof method and the exposure to cold, and especially when you go in the shower, hot, cold, it starts training your veins to do this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure that my cardiovascular system is completely different than it was, you know, before I started doing it.
It's definitely improved.
And I turned vegan really not so much for health reasons. You know, most people will do this, oh, I want to lose weight. Oh, so I'll go vegan. And I knew that wasn't going to be enough for me. The real reason why I've managed to stick to it so far is and I consider myself a novice because I haven't even done it for a year, was because of some documentary films that many people have seen that I saw, which really had a profound impact on me. You know, things like Dominion, Earthlings, Cowspiracy, Forks Over Knives. The recent one, Hits the Ground, I think, that Woody Harrelson did. And there's a few others, I can't remember right now. And these really had an impact on me because I realized that the ethical reasons for turning vegan were much more powerful for keeping me on track than the old health benefits. The health benefits are a bonus. That's what keeps me on course. That's what keeps me. I mean, really, since I went vegan, I know that my cholesterol has gone down without checking it because that happens. I no longer have gout. I no longer have gout. I was starting to get gout because of very high uric acid levels. Right, gout gone. Right, hemorrhoids gone. Right, these are all the wonderful things that start to happen to you when you start hitting your 50s. Right,
I know. We all know that.
What's going on with my body?
Yes.
What's going on with my body? Right. And
horrible things.
Nobody wants to talk about their hemorrhoids, right?
No,
gone.
Yes,
gout gone, hemorrhoids gone. You know,
hemorrhoids disappeared with my Wim Hof, basically. You know, the cold showers. That was enough for my anus to contract and say, no, that's enough, man.
So that's really that's why I decided to become vegan. It was more than for my own personal benefit. It was because I knew that it was actually we have to do something. There's not enough land on this planet to feed all the animals that humans eat.
No,
it isn't.
No.
So the only way, you know, charity starts at home. The only way to actually make your own small
changes.
One person isn't going to move the needle.
No.
Not one person is going to move the needle. But there is a wave now where more and more people are starting to realize that for the sake of our planet, you know, we need to change our habits. And again, talking about the smoking before, where I would once in a while I'll say to my wife, let me light your cigarette, because I don't want to be a slave to non-smoking, because then again I'm kind of like I'm enslaved to something.
I know.
So the same thing with veganism. I went the first 8 months, I went 100%. Except for honey. With the exception of honey, 100% plant-based. Then in the summer, I went to visit a friend in France when the borders was open and so on. And of course, I said to myself, "There's no way in hell that I'm going to go to France and I'm not going to eat cheese and I'm not going to eat the wonderful." So I did. So I broke my veganism and then came back and again, I don't want to be, you know, some people will disagree with me. Vegans will say, no, it's all or nothing.
But that's a religion then. Then it becomes a religion.
I have to do, so I have to do what works for me. So what works for me is that when I'm at home, I'm what I just read about this recently. I'm a so-called home vegan. So when I'm at home, I'm a vegan. If I go to someone else's home, and they could. I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to eat your dinner.
No,
I'm not going to eat your
no,
food.
no.
You know, and I'm not going to expect them to change everything for all the guests because of me, right?
No.
So I, you know, if I went to someone's home and there was fish or a piece of chicken and I was their dinner guest, I'd eat it.
Yeah, you have a realistic approach to these things.
Many vegans wouldn't, but I would.
Yeah.
If I go to a restaurant, you know, and there's really very limited options, but I'm not going to go for the steak. And the question is, well, is a piece of fish any better than a piece of steak? Well, from ethical point of view, not really. No. But I will sometimes, on rare occasions, I'll try when I can to have the pasta or the salad. But sometimes, you know, and this is very rare, I'll just.
Yeah.
I think really since in the last, let's say, 3 months, I've had a piece of fish once.
Yeah.
But one fish.
Yeah, I do eat fish.
And then I have my other big sin. This was really from coming back from France. Is I've decided, because I don't want it to be a religion. So my other sin is goat's cheese. So I've said to myself, I will eat goat's cheese, which goat's cheese is better for you than cow's cheese anyway. Yeah. But that's the thing. I'll say I'll have goat's cheese as long as it's goat's cheese that you can't buy in a large supermarket. If it's an Aldi or Lidl, I won't buy it.
No.
I will only buy goat's cheese, which is made from goats which live in my immediate surroundings.
Okay,
because I know that then it's not industrial farming. I won't have anything where it's like on an industrial scale, because again, then I come back to my whole ethical thing. But you know, if this, you know, there's a farm below where I live, and there's usually like 50 goats out there. Now I know that some of those goats, unfortunately, are going to get slaughtered, but I look at them every day and they're roaming around. Now, if that farmer there was, you know, making goat's cheese out of those cheese, I would have that.
You would have some,
issue with that. Yeah, I wouldn't have an ethical issue. Yeah. But I would not go into some kind of battery hen, you know, where there's like, you know, tens of thousands of chickens or cows. Or no, that for me now, that's over.
That's yeah, I don't like that idea either, you know. So no, interesting, man, really interesting. I mean, if you were,
so I guess that was a fundamental change to me.
But that is
veganisms.
Yeah,
because those are tangible things. You see the immediate results.
Yeah, you do. You feel the results. You can see the results also. You know, I mean, if you have
the thing about veganism, I saw a friend, right, and I said, "What the hell happened to you?" This was last year. I said, "What happened to you?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You look absolutely fantastic."
Yeah,
he was like glowing. I said, "What have you done?" He goes, "Oh, I turned vegan." No, I turned vegan, and that immediately made me think of it. Funny, because it was like it was so just like screaming at me.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not necessarily just vegan. It is just that the alternative to veganism is highly processed foods. And that is kind of why people feel such a huge change when they change from conventional meals and so on. Because what you can get in supermarkets, I mean, most of it is processed. It's full of additives.
Yeah, no, and it's all been sprayed with
exactly.
And
which is full of
antibiotics,
toxins.
you know, and
exactly
hormones.
So, no wonder we look kind of ill when we eat that kind of food. And when you then turn vegan,
well, it's also what Wim Hof says, right? He says, as technology has increased, we have become weaker.
Yeah.
You know, because and it's you know, in winter when it's cold, we turn on the heating. In summer when it's hot, we turn on the air conditioning. We have completely disconnected ourselves from nature.
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. And by living in this sort of synthetic bubble.
Yeah.
And all the food that we buy, we walk up and down these aisles of supermarkets with all this shiny, nicely packaged food, right? And we don't even give a moment's thought to how did we get there in the first place, right? We just like consume. We just grab it. We're living in such an unconscious and synthetic world, really, because of technology and logistics. And
in an ideal world, I mean, in ideal world, 95% you see in the supermarket you shouldn't even touch. You know, I mean,
and then we wonder why we all get sick.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. And why cancer is on its increase, why cardiovascular disease is on its increase, dementia, and so on. No, it's really bad. I mean, this has been great talking to you, John. I mean, if you suddenly,
thank you. It's always fun.
You know, if you met, one more thing here, if you met your 20-year-old self, what would you advise that person?
Doing the Wim Hof Method. It's part of their daily routine. Seriously. it's Wim Hof's mantra: strength, health, and happiness, right? I mean, what more do you want in life?
Yes,
You're healthy,
exactly.
you're strong, and you're happy.
Yeah.
Rock and roll. What more do you need?
That is my motto also. That's why the podcast is about these things. It is really, I mean, I feel a lot stronger and healthier and happier now. So
if you take care of the foundation, then everything else will come.
Yeah.
If the house is not in order, how can you expect anything good to come out of that? Like the Germans say, "Nichts kommt from nichts." You only get out what you put in.
Yeah.
So yes, I would definitely. If I had known about the Wim Hof method when I was 20, I'm so happy I discovered it in my 50s.
Better late than never.
Better late than never, right?
Yeah.
But I try to tell my children, but of course, children will never do what a parent will tell them, because it's seen as from a place of authority.
It has to come within himself.
It has to come from within.
Yeah.
I'd say follow your trust yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Trust yourself. I think because we've lived in a society over the centuries where our parents have told us what to do. I'm going to become an accountant because my father was an accountant and he said I should become an accountant. And how many miserable people live their lives that way because they did what someone else told them to do instead of what they, following their own instinct and trusting themselves. And I think that's key,
Yeah. What great way to end this podcast, man, with that last few wise words from you. See, John, if people want to know a little bit more about this business there and so on and find it interesting, I mean, where can they get the information?
About what? Sorry.
About this new adventure you're starting with. Let's say there's somebody out there.
It's a startup. So we're right now we're in the process of negotiating a transaction whereby we would be purchasing a collection and shredding business in Germany as step one. Look, there's a lot of this online. If you're just interested in end-of-life tires and the damage that they're causing, and some of the end-of-life tire pyrolysis is the technology. It's not going away. It used to be seen a bit as the holy grail, but now it works, right? I mean, Michelin just bought 20% of a Swedish pyrolysis company.
Yeah.
And tire manufacturers are starting to hook up with pyrolysis because they know this is the future, because they want to lower their carbon footprint as well. So we're going to hear more and more about this. Not just with tires, also with plastics. Pyrolysis plastics. And extracting all the oil from all these plastic bags and so on.
Yeah, exactly. That would be a good thing. Thank you, John, man.
When we are up and running, I'll let you know. And
great.
And then the sky's the limit.
Yeah. Thank you very much, John. This has been a pleasure to do this with you. Yeah, and I hope I can send my love to your family and kids and wife. And I'll speak to you soon, yeah? Okay?
Take care.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.